Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, it's Halloween. Let's work on a holiday bonsai.
Yeah, that's about all I got for my pumpkin carving skills. This year, I looked at the pumpkin. I didn't put any templates over the pumpkin. I didn't look on the internet. I just drew a couple of eyes and nose and thought I would go with some really sharp teeth this year. I don't know what moved me, but there it is. There is the limits of my artistic abilities for Halloween. Welcome to Halloween, everybody. It's the 31st of October, and the month was a great one. We had a lot of sunshine. We had some decent rainfalls to keep all the trees outside really nice and healthy and flush out all that, not so good water or not so good elements from whatever throughout the year. It's just always good to get rain to just flush out that system and filter everything through. Warm temperatures, longer growing season. Some of the trees haven't even completely changed color yet, while other ones, the leaves are completely gone. So before we work on the tree today, this holiday episode of Dave's Bonsai, let's go check the garden. Let's go check the benches and see what everything is doing on this last day of October, when I typically would have all my trees inside cold frames by now. But we still have a couple days. Let's go check out the trees outside. So we're going to take a little tour of the garden here on the last day of October. So it is Halloween Day. And the trick-or-treaters will be out in full force later on this evening. A little breezy, the sun is out right now, but it promised to be a dry day today. So let's take a peek at what's going on in the garden here. We've got all the trees still on the benches, and the vegetable garden back there has some trees in there. Let's get a close-up look and just a little last day of October garden tour. One of the fun things from this past year is that my neighbor's tree, this red maple here, deposits a lot of seeds throughout the year. And so I have a couple of trees there from seed, all the maple tree. So there's one of my, I think it's one of my Fraser firs that did not make it, but I have 3 maples in there, 3 maples in that one. So, we'll keep them for next year and see what's happening. So the big golden larch, the tamarack that I got from Gerton's earlier in the year, steal a deal, this great big 20-gallon pot. It was a $20 tree. Not sure what I'm gonna do with this one yet, but it's just starting to go to that golden color. So we still got some time yet before this thing will go all gold and lose its leaves. And it's November tomorrow. Got the Siberian fir that I wired up about a week ago or so. One of my Japanese maples. This one I do believe was grafted with another variety. Very purple leaves. They are green at some point in the year when they grow, but they stay purple throughout most of the year, kind of a maroon color. And it's gonna go into either a new pot next spring, or we're gonna do that thread graft with the branches here off to the right. We're gonna swoop those around and give it some new branches down low, and then we're gonna have a chop eventually. So I need to chop it down, I need a new pot, and I need to thread graft it. Can't do all 3 of them in one spring, so we'll see what happens. The spruce trees from the recent trip up north in the sphagnum moss, love and life. The larch from up north have almost lost all their color now, all their foliage coming off. That golden larch, they were golden up 2 weeks ago, and they're sitting in the sphagnum moss as well. Then we have the bench back there with the potpourri. We got the birch forest in the back. Birch forest clump. Some of the trees hopefully turning white on the trunk next year. We're close. It seems very close. Got a Chinese elm that's going to be coming in the cold frame this week for sure. Barberry there is doing okay. A lot of death on it again this year, but it's doing okay. We have the elm, Siberian elm forest, a couple of them still on the benches. Tony Aster back there. The large forest that did not make it. We have one larch on the left hand side, but as you'll see, we've got a lot of maple trees that grew in that big pot as well. So the homemade boot tray pot with a new forest. The old forest trees are still there dead, and the maples We're growing up now. Milo's gonna say hi to us. Our Amur maple. There's the lilacs. Close up of the Minnesota Forest number 2. The dwarf Alberta spruces in the back. We'll be trimming those up pretty soon. We got some elms, Siberian elms. We got some maple. They're the larch from last year's collection. They have now all turned colors, ready to drop their leaves. You notice the maple trees in there as well. We'll see if we can harvest a few of those next year. Milo really wants to say hi today. Got the forest and a clock looking a little sparse this year. Didn't do so well. We'll see if it comes back in full force next year. Maple in there. We got some white ash in there. We have some Siberian elm in there as well. Maples from the there's some maple on the end here. Maple from, again, the tree behind me. Milo's tree. Got a viburnum right there that stayed alive. One of my viburnums still going good. My leftover junipers back there. Got the mugo pine tucked in there. Back in the corner. Here's my Peter T Trident maple. Worked on that with Peter T this year. We made the one branch go up here as the new leader. This is going on to hopefully get some more bud backs and some strength back inside the tree. This is the tree that has a really nice nabari. This is the side we're hoping for some new growth. This point right there, new roots. We have some sphagnum moss underneath the rock, hoping to get those roots flared out. And there's the other spruce we collected up north. Still looking fully alive and wonderful. Of course, we won't know till next year how this one does. Some of the squirrels have been kind of chewing at my sphagnum moss and looking for a nut down there, or maybe burying one. And we got the new bench. It's still in the shade right now. The sun's just creeping out over here where we have the juniper hanging off. We got some shade in here for another hour or so. Got a larch back there. This is my blue arrow juniper. That's going to be kind of that old growth tree with the whole candelabra look there. Where you got the trees that are going to start to grow up and look like there's trees way high up on the old growth, what might be looking like imitating a redwood tree. Norway spruce right there, Norway pine. There's a cutting from Japanese maple that's sprouted up really, really well. A couple other cuttings, we'll know next year if those survive. Again, we have the Siberian forest down here, a couple of them, with all my cotoneasters, getting that real fall color. Got my Kishu juniper, getting ready to go in the cold frame here this week, because we'll have lows down into the 20s several days in a row. Time for the cold frame. And we've got a black pussy willow there that came with just a phenomenally thick trunk. And I've cut this one back a couple times this year, and it started to shoot out just a ton of new growth. So I know I can push out at least 2 flushes of growth on the pussy willow, and we'll see what buds we get next spring for those pussy willow flowers before the season gets ready to grow. My weeping willow peninsula, haven't showed this one in a long time. We had some more critter damage. This thing has just been really a struggle for me to get growing. But as you can see, there's still 3 or 4 branches that started to sprout out really late in the season. It's alive. We're going to keep it in one of the cold frames, or even just possibly in the garage to let it freeze solid. Keep the critters away from this thing, and maybe it'll have a chance for a life next year. And if it doesn't come back, I have several others in nursery pots that I'll go ahead and put in the peninsula. And behind it in the back there, we have one of my Japanese maples that have lost all its leaves. It's probably been a while since I've shown the willow in the log. We lost one tree this year on the right hand side. That was just letting it get too dry. 2 of the trees survived, and one of them just said, "Nope, I'm done, Dave." Here's my Korean fir that we wired up this year. Did a lot of chopping on this one. Took a lot of foliage off. Still looking nice. We're going to keep this one protected pretty well this year too. Maybe in the cold frame if I have enough room. Got my Satsuki azalea on the left, the Scandia juniper in the middle. That had a tough time with Scandia junipers, and that was actually a freebie when I did a repot. There was another second trunk. I just put it into a pot, and we're just having a struggle with that one this year. But the Scandias, I've noticed, not doing so well. And then we have like this ash leaf spirea on the right. It's a pretty cool leaf pattern. I've kind of fallen in love with that tree, but it lost a lot of its branches. I cut back and we got some new buds, so I know it can bud back really, really well. So I hope it comes back next year. I lost my really nice red twig dogwood. This is the cutting from that original one. It's still alive. Another Cotoneaster I really chopped up a little while ago. And then one of my other Japanese maples. I hope the red twig dogwood though survives. I love the red twig. As you can see, it's pretty red right now. And then in the spring, usually shows a really nice red, the new growth. But it's a nice straight up, formal upright type tree right now. My last one had like 3 or 4 clump style. We'll hope that one survives for the next year. And then just off to the left of that bench is a couple of, well, I shouldn't say accident trees, but again, seeds from the neighbor. I've got all these maple trees that grew a foot or more. They've been cut down to size once this year. And then there's some Kishu Shimpaku junipers down there, cuttings from my Peter T tree from last fall that made it through the entire year and seemed to be okay. We're going to put that in the cold frame too now in the next couple of days here. And then I have a whole bunch of boxwoods that I acquired from the Minnesota Bonsai Society member. She had access to several trees, so I picked up a few, bought a few from her. Got a couple variegated there. And one had a little bit of issues. So I went ahead and repotted it, just a slip pot into a bigger pot, and cut off some of the dead stuff, and it's coming back nice. It actually looks more like a bonsai than the other ones, of course, because I haven't touched those. We might cut some of these up a little bit to make watering this winter in the cold frame a little easier. Because if I water these right now and just pour water over the top, the water is going to run all over the place, including the cold frames. So I need to kind of clean up the bottoms a little bit if I can. So that'll be a project one day, to just take these 6 or 8 trees and just clean up the bottoms a little bit if I can, and make more room for me to get a water bottle in there. And the cold frame getting ready to do its stuff. The door there on the left in the shade. We've got the boxwood that I recently just cut up in an episode recently. Take a peek at that episode. Another barberry that's struggling to stay afloat. We'll see what it does next year. This was kind of a recovery year for all my barberries. And hopefully the root systems have established themselves now, and then next year we'll see a whole bunch of fun growth and start making some possible early shape designs to the tree. One of my boxwoods right there, kind of just a little bit in the shade. Kind of a twin trunk look on that one. Japanese quince. Kind of a multi-trunk mess of a tree. And this one looked like it wasn't doing so well, then popped back late in the year again, so I'm feeling pretty happy about that. So we'll see what happens next year. I only got 1 bud on this one, a really weird time in the year. But we'll see if this one picks up some new growth in the new year. I ended up putting my hemlock on the northwest corner of my house. And I was a little nervous about some possible winter winds. It won't get any sunburn because it's going to not see any more sun now because the house is in the way. So I put a little protection with a tarp and the green stuff that I protect some of my willow bushes from the rabbits. I went ahead and put a tarp around there to protect from some of the wind. I don't care about the top part of the tree because we're gonna cut that off in the spring, or actually I'm gonna cut that off in the winter time. I've heard that the hemlocks can deal with a really harsh chop in the dead of winter when all the sap is not flowing anymore. And so I'm gonna cut most of that top from the tarp off, and then we'll have the rest of the tree to work with. So I'm protecting the bottom foliage from any wind that might come this way. It is protected by a little hill in my yard. Just right here there's this little hill and then the neighbor's houses and the trees. So we don't get a ton of wind here, but of course on a windy wintry day it could be pretty nasty. So the hemlock is protected now. So it's an absolutely stunning day this Halloween, October 31st. The benches are all looking still fine. Another absolutely stunning day in Minnesota. It's a little chilly out there. I just had my short sleeve shirt with the long sleeve shirt, and it's a little chilly when you get away from that sunshine. High only supposed to be in the mid 40s today. Yesterday was close to 60. I was up north shutting down the cabin, and just an absolutely beautiful day on the river. Had a great time with my son, my dad, my brother. We closed down the cabin for the year. But it is a holiday, so let's do a holiday tree today. So here is the blooming tree. Now, the Thanksgiving cactus, which I now regularly call it, I'm getting better at it, folks. The Thanksgiving cactus has had its full bloom. I'm going to flash back to where this came from. So I have some pictures, there's some video, and we'll take a peek at this tree back when it got started. I have a few images from this Christmas cactus, kind of where it started, a couple pictures of its beautiful blooms. Just this past August, September, I got a whole bunch of blooms on this guy. We had over 15 blooms. So the pictures can show you that. The blooms have all gone off except for this one right here. So that's the last one. But it's time to put this guy in a new pot. This was either an extra trunk or a cutting from my wife's Thanksgiving cactus. And I started as a bonsai. In that first year, I think I had the one bloom. I think the picture shows one bloom. Super small, the flat leaves. And this is about 4 or 5 years later now that I'm working on the tree today. One of the most viewed YouTube videos that I've made to date is this Thanksgiving cactus, and the one I shot about a year and a half ago. I'll have a link to that episode. Let's go back and check a little bit from that episode when it got its first really big prune after it got kind of big. Let's go take a look at that. This one splits into two nicely. The back one splits into two again. It's a little sloppy up here. It grew kind of weird, so I'm just going to cut that one off. Takes a while for these wide branches up top to turn into these round circular looking branches. So I'm just going to leave this backside right there, I think, to keep them growing longer and hopefully start to thicken this one up. The only thing else I would do on this one right now is considering taking this one off right here. I think I will. Now I don't have as many branches crossing each other per se. You got this outside semicircle of branches. This one kind of coming up straight up, this coming back here, this coming back here, this over here. I got teas new here that I hope will get new growth and fill up this area right here. But that's what I'm going to stop it right there. I've done enough trimming for today, and we're going to let that go ahead and grow. Recently in an episode, I went up north and collected some older trees. Nothing really big, but trees, larches, and some spruce that had some age look to them and characteristics to them that make them look a little bit older, and they are older. But the most joy I get in bonsai, hands down, most of the time, although it's fun to go out there and do some Yamadori hunting, is taking a tree from pretty young, cutting. I'm a cutting person. I don't do much from seed. I've tried a couple of times, but I like taking the cuttings. And then this bonsai tree is my tree from the ground up, from that first cutting, and I've shaped it ever since. And I have a few trees like that I'm really starting to really enjoy because I've taken care of this thing from the beginning, and as slow as it is and as slow as it's going to become a big, beautiful tree, I've seen it every step of the way, so it's been kind of fun. So this Thanksgiving cactus is due for its haircut. Now, I did bring it inside, right into more of a dark room, a cooler room. We kept it dry, we got all these blooms, and now they're looking a little shaggy. Things have been really weeping because of the weight of these big flowers, and it's time to cut this thing back. We're gonna go almost all the way. So it was watered a couple of days ago. I won't have to worry about watering for a while now because we're gonna take all of the stress off of this tree because of the blooms. So most of the flowering trees that we have in the bonsai world, the flowers, they suck out all the energy of our trees. And so my Satsuki azalea that we saw earlier in the backyard tour, I didn't let that bloom this year. I got a couple of straggly blooms that came and I didn't catch them until they were just starting to open up, but then I chopped them off. But if we have blooms on our trees, it's gonna kind of take a lot of that energy. So This one didn't bloom tremendously last year, but I wanted to see it bloom this year with those tricks I mentioned, and so we let it bloom. But now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut this thing back to size. So I'm gonna change positions. I'm not gonna position myself in front of the table. We'll get that camera so you're not looking at my shoulder. I'm still working on that. Thanks for your patience. We'll get it off to the angle just a little bit so you can kind of see my decision process with the Thanksgiving cactus. Let's adjust for that first. So the front of this tree could be either that, or it could be that. If you'll remember, I left this out to grow to thicken up the base of that trunk, kind of a sacrificial branch, if you will. It did divide into two right here, and I'm still gonna leave that on and just let it continue to push out some really width, if it can, to the bottom of this trunk. So we have a wider bottom, thinner split here and thinner here. We keep going from thick to thinner to thinner. So the front of this tree doesn't, either side can be really, really good. You got this one that comes up about an inch or so, then it splits into two, and you got an inch and it splits. We got all kinds of growth here. This one splits front to back. This one's a little bit more at an angle so you can see it better. And then when you twist the tree this way, there's, you can see that back trunk. So I think I like this as the front best in the past. It kind of comes around and hugs us more as a tree. So what I'll do first is I'm gonna go ahead and just get rid of all the buds. One internode from the bud, because there's not a lot of division where these buds are. Again, it took a lot of energy, and it put all the energy into these buds. So we didn't have a tremendous amount of work on the actual foliage of the tree, the branching structure. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut off one internode behind each flower, and then we'll take a peek at it. There's some flowers here that are still not even, haven't budded out yet. And I'm not going to worry about that now. There'll just be some stragglers on here. I was able to get some photographs of the tree in its full bloom. I can show you some of those while I'm making these cuts. So yeah, the full bud pictures, I was able to get a couple pictures in my old plant room. I had that as a backdrop for the picture. And so I got a couple shots of this when it was, most of the flowers were open and mostly open, not starting to sag and get droopy and start to close like these are right now. And there we have a tree that you can now see again as kind of a shape as a tree and not so willowy looking. We still have some buds on here. As we do more of this prune, we will go ahead and get rid of those. So a little adjustment here so you can see more of the tree with the white background. You get to be able to see through the tree a little bit and see some structure of these leaves. We still got the old trusty pumpkin here to keep us company, the jack-o'-lantern. So again, looking at this tree, if that is the front right there, because I can see this branch back here. This way, I can see these branches here, but this kind of goes into our face a little bit more. See how it comes out at us a little bit more? But if this is the front, that back one, what used to stick out at us now goes back there, and we can see both branches. So I've kind of liked that in the past. So I think that's more my front on this one. I have learned from the past that this Thanksgiving cactus can take a beating, and I can cut off quite a lot on here. So we have a lot of nice growth now that's going straight up in different areas. I've never wired this. I've considered putting some corks in here, some wine corks, and spreading some branching out. Haven't done that for a while here. But you saw with these branches, when they got really long and kind of thin, and with the flowers it got real droopy. After this kind of heals up, after this prune and grows up new shoots, it's going to grow nice and strong and thick and powerful, and they'll stand up kind of like these back ones over here are standing up real nice and tall. So again, we're going to kind of just pick our branches. We're going to go where it's 3 and go down to 2. Here's a perfect example of that right here. There's 3 branches right there. 1, 2, and 3. We don't need all 3. We're going to go down to 2. So we'll decide which one we're going to cut off on that one. Now typically when we're in the inside of a tree, we don't want branches to grow inside of the tree, so I want maybe more outward growth. I would cut this one off. And let's go ahead and do that right now. So that one's gone. And then I'm just going to cut this one shorter to 1 node. I'm going to cut this one down to 1 node and this one down to 1 node for right now. And we just took care of that branch right there. Now you'll notice that branch a little bit lower is also a threesome. We have 1, 2, and 3. So this one's growing at us, kind of inside, and it's droopy. Let's cut it off, because this one is certainly nice and strong and robust. And then we got this one over here that's growing, and it also split into 3. There's our 3 right there. So this back one is split into 3. So if now this is the front of our tree, this is growing out at us, I'll cut that branch off. I'll cut this down to size. This one down to size. I'm leaving 2 nodes on that one. And I cut that down to size. But I still have 3, so which one do we cut off? Well, again, this one's in front. Maybe we'll compete against this one. Let's cut that one off. And we've got this split right now here with there and there. And I'll go ahead and go right down to just 1 on each side there, and we'll see how they act. Now this one right here becomes a problem with these two. This might hide these, but we'll worry about that later. Or maybe I'll cut this down here and this is splitting up here. Or maybe I'll just cut it off right here and we'll get new growth and it'll go maybe up more. So I can decide that a little bit later, and I will. So let's take care of this branch in front of that branch. Or second thought, let's go down that branch even further and look, it splits into 3 again way down here. This one's coming out at us at the camera. We just don't want that mess. It's growing inside. We don't even see this one on the backside right now, so we don't even know where that's going to be. We'll come back at it later. So let's look at this cluster of branches right here. So this right here, what are we going to do with that? So as we lift up the branches and look, we've got 1, 2, 3. Now again, typically a branch growing on the inside is blocking some of the main trunk. We got rid of that whole section. Whole section here where this branch is coming up here now. It even has almost this little movement this way because we got these branches over here. Let me cut these down to size so we can just see what's going on. Let me get this out of the way. So we have our 2 branches here, but oh wait, look, there's a 3rd one inside right there. We don't want that one inside growing, so we're going to cut that off right there. So now we have our 2 branches. I like that this is growing kind of down this direction, but we're going to cut everything else off down to there. We have our split into 2 right here and here, but these 2 cross, this one and this one. So I might not keep that long term, but for today, we're good to go. And I'm just going to cut this one right here. I just want new growth from this guy right there. I like the bend and movement here. Let's see what will bud and shoot out with this branch. And this shows this now a lot clearer. This is blocking this branch, so this will probably go someday. But for right now, we're going to let these grow and see what happens. I have a nice split here on this back side. This is the woody look. Hopefully this becomes woody next year, as with this will too, I hope. But we have now 3 branches back on this one still. You see that? 1, 2, 3. So again, if we look back here now, look through the tree, this kind of shows some texture back there. So I want to maybe keep this one back here. And this takes this one and gives us a nice little separation of the tree branches here. So here's this one coming out this way, and then I'm just going to cut it super short. Now this one splits right here. I'm going to cut off this little tiny growth here and see what that does right there. So this section right here with this branch is completely done for stage 1. And we'll go around the tree and do the other trees, but there we go. And I probably will just cut this down right here. Should I do that now, or should I leave the separation? I think I'm going to leave the separation. I'm going to cut that up there, though. We're going to leave that for now and maybe come back to that. Our branch down here, that's sacrificial, I'm going to cut it down to 3 nodes, or it looks like maybe 2 nodes. Maybe it'll split again and get some more growth. So now let's tackle this side. We've got this split right here of 2 branches. We're going to do the front one first. So again, this front one's kind of blocking our view with stuff in the back. Do we want it blocking our view? Probably not, but it's a nice split in 2 right there. So maybe I just cut off right here, this one, so we can move over this direction. Now this one comes up and splits into 2 right away. That's very interesting. Right there, it splits into 2 right away, so that could be an interesting branch, but again, is it going to be in our way? Let's cut some of these back down to an internode or 2 before we make any final decisions here. So this guy right here is being hidden, growing off to the inside over there, really weird. We just cut him off. So here we have a really nice split into 2 right here. That one right there. And that would clear us up if I get rid of this thin one right here. So let's get rid of that. So now when I lift up all of this and get it out of the way, I still got some interesting stuff here. Remember, this is the front, so that's all happening in the back. So it's kind of filling up the back. I don't mind it right now, but you see this one going this way? It's blocking all that. Let's just cut this off right now and hope this continues to split up here, and we just have a cleaner look right here. We'll just leave that for right now. So that's that back side right here. But now we got this front part that we actually see in the front here. Wait a minute, which is the front? This is the front, yep. So we're gonna see whatever we leave on this branch right here. We're gonna see this a little bit more. But you see that? That's kind of blocking our view here. I just cut the inside branches out, then it's just long and leggy. Let's just cut it way back and we'll see where it splits next year. This one splits into 3 right up here. We don't want 3. I'll cut the one that's coming towards us more, leave these 2. And I'm just gonna make fresh cuts so it can regrow some new branches there. This one is obviously dangling in our way and coming in the front. We don't want that eventually. You're gonna cut it off anyway, right now, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. So now there's the result of those 2 branches. This one I can go at least 1 more. Let's go 1 more. And that's all that's left. But now it's very linear, right? We don't have much movement here, so this would be nice if this came down here. That would be the best thing right now for this to happen, would be this to come down here and I could cut this off and we could see all these branches fanning out. So we'll see if we get some more growth here. We could probably put a little bit of weight on here and let it grow that way and harden off that way someday. So that's potential. So this is the front, so we're getting rid of that guy. We're gonna get rid of this guy because it's kind of curling right up in the front and blocking some of our tree, so we'll get rid of that. We're gonna cut off this inside branch of this split into 3, and here's 2 left. This one's going sharply to the left and it crosses over that other branch over there, so I'm just gonna cut that off. I'm gonna cut that off right there. Let's cut this tall one back. It's splitting up top really nice into 2s and 3s, but it has 1, 2 inner nodes before it splits. I would love the split to be down here, so I could cut it down here and see what grows. Got a nice firm, this will be all hardwoody probably by next year. It's really close right here, and this is even close as well. So this is pretty thick and chunky up here, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna at least cut it to there, and I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna cut it right there and see what grows at our inner node right there. There we go. And so if I'm doing that, I better cut this one back as well. I've got this split into 3 little sections back here. So this one's hidden back behind the other one, so that's not gonna do any good. So let's go and get rid of that one. It leaves this little dangly one, but let's just cut off these 2 dangly branches and we'll see if we can get some growth that goes up. I'm just gonna cut that off. So we've got 2 here. We'll see if we get 2 new ones here. So if this is our main trunk, this is bigger than our main trunk. Maybe we don't want that. Maybe we go ahead and get all new growth all the way throughout there. I think this one has to definitely come down 1 more. So as you can see, we have really demolished most of this tree. And if you do go back and take a peek at this edit from a couple years ago, I did a very, very similar thing, but the tree was really wobbly then, and this is now all really hardwood, nice, getting some flakiness on here. And we've got about 3 inches off the ground, 2 to 3 inches of hardwood site here. This is getting hardwood looking, all the way up to here, about 2 to 3 inches for sure. So this is going to be a sacrificial to keep thickening up the bottom of the trunk. We've cut these almost all the way down to these hard woody substances. We left a little bit of green on all of these just to see what will happen. I'm just going to cut this one here and let it grow that way. I'm going to cut this one and let it come out this way and see where those split. Now if you look back at this branch back here, look at this guy's hidden back here. Let's just cut him off because he's crossing back there. Now we have this one in front that's hiding that one back there a little bit, but I don't mind. If you look in nature with trees in general, you can't look at any tree where there's not a crossing branch somewhere. So it's natural. Trees are going to grow naturally that way. All right. I think we're going to leave this right here, just like this. My update for today is on the Premna Air layer cuttings that we did. So we cut off the top of the air layer and found all this great roots from about a July air layer start point, and about 2 months later had all these glorious roots. So check the description where we have a link to that episode as well. And this is one of the 4 or 5 trees up there on the bench that were from the air layer. We put them in these new pots and we gave them the rocks to hold them in place. And since that show, we've got about an inch of growth on this guy right here. Look at the growth back here. You know, this is all new growth since the show, at least this tip up here. There's one back here that's really starting to grow. This is starting to grow. Up here, look at this length right here. That's all new growth since the show. So they are loving life in the plant room and they're growing really, really well. So that is one of the 5 air layers. They're all shooting up similar branches, so that's really exciting. So one of the air layer plants that I had, this is the stump from that air layer, and I put a cutting right here. I just stuck it right in the soil. No rooting hormone at all, just stuck it in the soil, and there's still life. I've lost a couple of leaves, some have fallen off, got a little yellow, but I think it's still alive. We're just gonna see if this just grows a new bonsai. But the original trunk is right there, and again, if you go back and look at the show when we made the show, there was a sucker growing up from this one that I just left alone and said, hey, let's just see what it does. And so here is, oh my gosh, look at this. This is 12 inches of growth. And since the show, it's probably about 4 inches of growth. We probably had this much growth when the show was aired, and this is all brand new since the show. And we've got all these back buds right here. If I were to cut these trees right now down by these inner nodes, look, we've got new branches that could start way down here, and there's even one right next to the trunk, there's leaves. So I could cut this tree right here, and I've got all this growth right here, but this is all green. Nothing has gotten hard and woody yet. So I'm not going to do any cutting anytime soon. We're just going to let this shoot all out and we'll see what it does in the plant room. So that's fun. So that's one of the bases of the air layer. And the final update for today with the Premna air layering is this trunk. So if I show you, there's the trunk right here. It was kind of a twin trunk. So we've got twin trunk stubs from the trunk because we chopped it right off. And we have an air layer over there on the bonsai benches for the new bonsai. But this has turned into a mini forest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 suckers. We've got a forest of 5 right about there. If you take a peek like that, we've got this forest of 5 trees growing up. Unbelievable. So when this was done in the show, I don't even remember. I'll have to go look myself. There was 1 or 2 suckers. I know these have completely shot up since the show. These 2, maybe these 3. I might have had 2 to start with, or maybe 2 and a little stub. But look at that growth from the last couple of weeks. And again, about 8 inches tall, right there. So we have a mini forest that'll have this interesting bottom, but we could throw a big old rock in there. We could make this some kind of rock planting. Could be kind of fun. Or we cut a couple of these suckers off and just let the tree grow, and we kind of chip away at that trunk base or the trunk bases, and we clean it up once we see more roots and where they're going. So there is the update for today. A couple of Premnas that are growing super, super aggressively in the plant room. There we go. Our holiday bonsai edition is coming to a close. The Thanksgiving Cactus. This is the after shot. And take a quick peek at that before shot here. We had a big droopy old plant with a lot of really nice pretty flowers. Look at all that we took away. A lot of material. But we've done this in the past. It's responded really well. It'll now be in the comfort of the plant room, super warm. We got so much humidity in this room that we just usually have to mist this plant. Sometimes about once every 2 weeks I'll give it a good watering, but that's about it. We're sitting pretty good to let this thing now sprout out and get even bigger. We got woody trunk, again a good 2 to 3 inches above the bottom, top of the soil line. From down here to up here is about 3+ inches on some of those branches. So the woodiness, it's getting a little thicker, it's getting a little bit more texture on that trunk, so that's super cool. So what a fun holiday show to do, the Thanksgiving cactus that bloomed before Halloween this year. So this Thanksgiving cactus was more like my friends in Canada for Canada's Thanksgiving. That's already come and gone. I'm not quite up on all their holidays, but I know it's come and gone, and so this bloomed more for the folks in Canada, my friends up there. So a shout out to Jay and a shout out to Nigel. Fans of the show, I'm fans of their show. Check them out on their YouTube channels, Blue Jay, Bonsai, and of course the Bonsai Zone. And we got another one to put on the plant room shelves. Hey, thanks for watching. Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Hope you had a really fantastic Halloween. It was sure a nice one in Minnesota. We have just had beautiful weather, so enjoy. Take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and we'll catch you very, very soon.